celebrating the birthday?
Nope, he's celebrating this coming Sunday.
Really?
Yes, they always do it the Sunday after his birthday for some reason. But he's at that age of the gap too. Is Bobby in this house? Is he not married?
Thanks. It's bright. I'm okay.
All right, it appears to be 4:30 on February 22nd, 2023. We are the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council, I believe. Nova, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Barron?
Here.
Councilmember Dramoff? Here. Councilmember Ferlito? Here. Mayor Potter?
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Richards is absent.
Excellent. All right, would you join me in the pledge, please? Please begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first item of business is public appearances. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Does anybody wish to do so? Now would be a good time to come forward. State your name for the record. I'd appreciate that. 3-minute limitation on that testimony. Is there anybody wishing to speak tonight? Is there anybody in the Zoom world that would like to talk?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right. Close the public comment period. Bring us forward to our one item of business tonight, which is fiscal year 22-23 mid-year budget report and resolution 23-25 approving fiscal year 2022-2023 adopted budget amendments. Did you want to intro or do you want to go straight?
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Thank you, sir. So this is our mid-year budget review, and I think at our individual updates, Council, we've been talking about the fact that we have a strong finance team, but it's really small but mighty, and we are missing a couple of key positions. That said, I want to thank Jane Hogan, who's been with us for just 3 or 4 months, and then Maxine, who will give you the bulk of the presentation, and as usual, I'll kind of chime in as I see fit to help spice up the conversation about the budget, which is not the most exciting topic in the world, but it's a very important topic, clearly to our city. So I want to thank the staff for putting this together, and I want to tell you that we're actively recruiting for a finance manager and some other positions in that division of the administration department. Because it really is kind of the heartbeat of the organization. Without strong administration, it's hard for Bob to do things, or the chief or Brandon to implement your policies in a very physical sense. The punchline on the mid-year review is that this is a time to look back at how we've done. We don't have the audit completed just yet, and that's again because we did not have a trial balance until recently. Typically, we're a couple months behind, but you will see the audit results in April. So some important meetings coming up in a couple weeks. On the 14th of March, we will have a more thorough review of our capital work, what we're proposing for the new fiscal year. We'll be proposing to refund the revenues that we're proposing to move around a little bit, as you see before you tonight. And again, plan for the new fiscal year. And then in April, we will have the audit completed so we can confirm how we ended last fiscal year. So again, we're not really out of out of a timing sequence, we're just a little bit behind where we traditionally are because, again, of our dearth of professional finance staff at this point in time. That said, again, this is the time of year to reflect a little bit on how we're doing on revenues and expenditures, and then also to make some minor tune-ups to the budget, unexpected expenditures, and again, a report on where we are with the revenue. So I think that I'll conclude there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the time, and again, happy to answer any questions as we delve farther into this very important topic.
Well done. Maxine, the floor is yours.
Okay, so good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I'm just going to give a brief overview of our mid-year budget for fiscal year 22-23. Again, really, this presentation focuses on expenses and revenues from July 1st through December 31st. And so I just really want to focus on that because our storm happened after that, so you're not going to see a lot of the expenses, and that's why we're coming also with a lot of the adjustments this afternoon. So this really is for our mid-year, which is July 1st through December 31st. And I will just reiterate what Chip said about the workshop on March 14th. That is really when city staff will provide more robust numbers about our actuals, about our forecasting revenues, about our forecast for 2023-24, about our unaudited how we ended last fiscal year. So we will have a lot of numbers coming at you in about 3 weeks, which also ties into the CIP and the council's priorities and goals so that we can talk about that on March 14th. So I just really wanted to make sure that those are two separate things coming tonight. Really is just about mid-year for the expenses and revenues from July 1st through December 31st. And of course, asking for some budget amendments. So overall, the city is on track from a revenue standpoint. Again, mid-year we are on track. The one area where we have excelled already is our transient occupancy taxes. We do show that we are projecting higher, and that is one of the budget adjustments that I am requesting this evening because based on through December 31st, we do see that. But all other indicators for our revenues state that we are on track and that we will meet our projected revenues for the fiscal year.
And if I may, Maxine, at this point in time, Mr. Banner and I have discussed this table for the last several years, and I do promise that in the future you will see these kinds of tables to make sure that they're intuitive from the sense that it clearly defines whether we're going to meet our budget goals and objectives. So because the way that we receive money, sales tax and property tax, for example, it's more episodic, and we get tranches of money. Tranche is a French word that means a portion of, and we get tranches sometimes unexpectedly by the state. Sometimes we receive several tranches at a time, and again, a lot of different economic factors that influence where we are at mid-year. For example, if you received your property tax bill, you can pay both portions, both your fall and your spring, at one point in time if you want to. And the assessor's office, the county tax collector, doesn't break it down for us what portion of our property owners are paying the entire annual tax bill versus splitting it between the two different cycles. So again, it's a little bit cryptic, a little bit difficult. A fuzzy crystal ball regarding revenues, but the punchline, as Maxine said, and I do want to reiterate that, is we are on track to meet and in some cases exceed our revenues. And as again we get further into the budget cycle, we'll talk about some of the economic indicators that we're seeing. For example, with TOT, with our transit occupancy tax, that will influence next year's projections as the 4 or 5 hotels that are currently offline come back online, and then again what daily overnight rate they're anticipating and how we think that our visitors will respond to that.
Correct.
Excellent.
Great. So moving to the expenditure side, although we are, I call tracking, again, this was before I called the storm in January, we were projecting on target. But we do anticipate, due to the storm recovery, a lot of overtime, staff working 7 days a week, staff coming in on holidays. So you'll see that this is one of the budget adjustments that we are requesting tonight. This is kind of an overview by all of the departments, so you can see that, again, most of the departments, a majority of the departments from July 1st through December 31st were on target and on track, kind of, again, reflecting their adopted budget. But due to the unforeseen circumstances with certain, the recovery or repairs for police vehicles or fire engines, things like this have popped up since. So,
and this is another example of again, we should be at 50%, correct? I mean, you're halfway through the fiscal year, but a lot of our expenditures are due at the beginning of the fiscal year. So under non-departmental, for example, you see that we are at 67%. That's because we pay our PERS premiums in August to avoid paying interest. And so again, we have got a higher expenditure. It's not a typical monthly cadence that we pay these, so we wouldn't be at 50%. Bob does, when we do tree work, for example, as soon as the fiscal year embarks, we often do a lot of tree work, a lot of pavement work, so you'll often see a spike in some of the capital line items at the beginning of the fiscal year. Again, they're not measured over a 12-month period.
and so this evening, or this late afternoon, part of the mid-year budget amendment request that we're coming is kind of more a combination of salaries and benefits, and this was a previously authorized change to the POA MOU. However, part of that, when it was adopted, part of the fiscal impact was that we would be coming in at mid-year to be requesting the funds for it. So this is what you're seeing is we are now requesting the funds for it. In addition to, again, overtime with in public safety, we are increasing the overtime budget due to the increase in salaries. Plus, we have had an employee out on workers' comp, which has caused some more than usual overtime. So those are the costs for salaries and benefits that we are requesting the amendment for.
And this, Chief Watkins and I spoke about this afternoon. So we have one employee who is out with an injury. We have an unfilled police position, and we have the commander position, so that's 3 positions out of 15. So that's 20% of our police workforce that's out. And what that does is that puts pressure on our overtime budget because we need to fill the ranks, if you will, on a to have police officers on duty.
And then the budget amendments that we're requesting on the service and supplies side range from, as you saw during our last council meeting, we did have a contract for MRG. This is the funding for it. We also have contract services through finance, which is the contractor that has helped us put together the audit and part of our forecasting. We are requesting $32,000 for the Microsoft licensing and an AC installation in the server room for IT. $54,000 for a fire engine repair that unfortunately was unexpected. $10,000 in medical supplies and fuel for the ambulance. About $2,000 for one of the contracts in the library that their, I call monthly fees increased. $20,000 for contract services for to kick off the landscaping ordinance. $109,500 for PD. There's a laundry list, but these I just wanted to kind of reflect the high levels, and one of them is the cameras, which is year 1 of 2, which is again something that City Council has been very vested in. I call the interest of this community and security and cameras. So that's year 1 of 2. Laptops for vehicles, contract services, and vehicle repairs. And then the last is $370,000 for public works, and about $170,000 of that is for storm recovery. So those are the budget amendments that we're requesting this evening.
And let me reinforce one, if I may. Councilmember Dramoff and I talked about public safety during our update today, And then ironically enough, when we were meeting, council member, Chief Watkins was meeting with the jewelers, I think 14 jewelers from the village, and they are very much in support of the flock camera system. This is the LPR system, which is a license plate reading system, which is a more sophisticated camera system than our existing system. It would supplant and amend our current system. We can talk about it, but in a lot more technical detail. But again, this is a good system, so we're going to get even better about catching people who come into our community to do ill.
And then the other budget amendments are in our capital outlay. So $22,972 for the 2 residential electric vehicles that we purchased for planning and building. It came over about $22,000. An adjustment for the fire engine of $5,702, and then $40,355 for the emergency HVAC repairs at the Sunset Center. So those were the costs that came in over.
And that fire engine's for the new fire engine, the one that you appropriated funds for last fall.
For $880,000.
Yeah, thanks
So-
for $1 million. It's an expensive.
Yes. So how we are balancing this fiscal year is that we do, again, as we kind of looked at our budget, we did have some cost savings. I call it administration for under our liability insurance premiums, which was about $50,000, and that offsets the IT and the finance costs. And then for our capital, we are not going to be spending all of the budgeted funds this fiscal year that we had anticipated. And again, we'll go into much more great detail during our March 14th workshop, but we will recapture those funds in 23-24, but that's how we're offsetting it, along with increasing our TOT of $330,000. So there is no net increase to the fiscal year 22-23. We are just moving money, in our current, structure of our operating budget. So that is my report this afternoon, and the budget adjustments for 22-23 that we are asking for.
Max, well done. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of council by Maxine or Chip? Karen?
Maxine, how do we keep track of our storm-related expenditures so that we make claims against FEMA or whoever is going to give us back some money? How do we keep that and then file those claims?
As soon as we entered, I call this storm season, and CHIP declared an emergency, we have an actual template that we have in finance, and so that went out to all the department directors that said effective immediately, please make sure that you're tracking, and on invoices they will write what's a storm recovery, what's I call storm related on our invoices and our tracking sheets. So we do have, each department is tracking all storm related costs so that we can look for funding for reimbursement.
Okay, so for example, if we have lots of trees down and we have to go around and cut them up and dispose of them and remove them, we can claim some of that in the storm-related
If it's
expenses?
storm-related, correct, yes.
Okay, and that would be outside of our normal maintenance because it was storm-related?
Because it was storm-related, correct,
Okay,
yes.
and so I assume those departments have to keep records and photos and so on and so forth?
Correct, yes. We do have to track the costs with the invoices.
Okay, because I'm very happy that those emergency declarations were made so that we can claim some of this and get reimbursement, because it's going to be quite expensive.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That's a key, council member. If the governor and president had not declared an emergency in Monterey County, we would not be, we couldn't file for reimbursement. So a typical storm event, like the one coming tomorrow, we will have call-outs, we will have issues in our urbanized forests, and those will not be necessarily reimbursable.
They will not?
Not unless, well, the storm, I guess the storm emergency is still in effect, so they may be. But on a typical year, unless an emergency is declared by either the the governor and/or the president of the United States, they would not be.
Okay. But up until this point, during that period where it was
Yes, ma'am.
declared an emergency, it will be.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, it does cover staff time, so we are tracking from a personnel standpoint, overtime, and then services and supplies.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Maxine or Chip by council? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public for questions and comments. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak tonight? Do come forward.
Since this is a mid-year review of our budget, I wanted to talk about the significance of balance in a way that is slightly different from the balance of revenues and expenditures. My name is Shirley Moon. Let me explain. We are critically out of balance when it comes to the amount dedicated to promoting Carmel-by-the-Sea and the amount dedicated to offsetting the damage done or increased maintenance required due to the extreme level of visitors. One example that I happen to be familiar with is a lack of funds to address trash control with any sense of consistency or efficiency on Carmel Beach and the scenic pathway. This space is the very jewel of our city and a top reason people come to Carmel in the first place. Where is the adequate reserved funds specifically to maintain, protect, and preserve this asset? This past holiday weekend was a perfect example of the consequences of being out of balance. There is no system whatsoever in place to clean the beach each day after heavy visitation. There was a spontaneous reaction of 5 concerned Carmel Cares volunteers who had a fire drill type trash pickup to keep as much trash out of the ocean as possible. Is this really the system we want to rely on? The tides and waves, as you know, are coming up to the bluffs, so any trash left on the sand is now in Carmel Bay. Since Carmel Bay is an area of special biological significance, it seems that having trash wash into the ocean is not what the state had in mind with this designation. Because there is another ongoing trash problem, which the city ordinance calls a nuisance, and I call dog poop, Carmel Cares has changed the dog mitts from green to pink so that we can now see the bags that are left over on the beach and the pathway. Now the challenge is how to find the balance of 1.5 cents per bag from the city. That's what it costs in addition to what we're now paying. Yes, that adds up to $32 per case and $2,560 per pallet. On balance, this seems like a very small increase in the budget as an effort to solve a big issue on the beach and the pathway. I am asking you to adjust the budget to continue using the pinks in the 15 beach dispensers. In closing, one can say love Carmel like a local until the cows come home, but it is not going to offset the additional maintenance caused by the sheer volume of visitors. One can put up banners and stick signs up all over town, and it will not replace the hands-on, consistent maintenance that is a mandatory to keep Carmel a clean and desirable place to live. I suggest that for every dollar spent on marketing Carmel to enticing tourists to visit, there is a matching dollar set aside to mitigate the impact and keep us in balance. Thank you for considering these adjustments.
Thank you, Shirley. Appreciate your testimony. Anybody else wishing to speak in the room tonight? I don't see, but is there anybody out in the Zoom world? Nova? All right, I'll close the public comment period, bring it back for council for comment. Chip, did you want to respond to the butt mitts issue?
This is where I can't, what do we go through? 640,000 bags, butt mitts a year. Bob and I did it's something like 43 bags per minute, 24 hours a day for 3. So it's clearly District 5 people coming into our village to steal our bags. That said, I know that Bob's looked at the economics of the bags as well. I don't know the financial metrics, but if the council's keen on this, my suggestion would be that we budget more money in the new fiscal year for the more highly visible bags on the beach or in Mission Trail Nature Preserve or wherever else they're used. So this in my mind wouldn't typically be a mid-year budget adjustment. It'd be kind of almost be a new program, because again, it'd be different, not just in the color of the bags. So that'd be my response, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council members, your comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, I have a comment on the dog bags. Today I was sitting on the corner of Dolores and Fifth, actually talking to our planning director about a meeting, and a man walked over to the dog mitt dispenser and took at least 50 bags. He stood there and pulled them out and pulled them out and pulled them out. And I was kind of shocked, and then within 10 more minutes, a second man came and did the same thing. So between these two men, in less than 10 minutes, I would imagine they literally emptied the dispensary. And to me, that is just shocking. I know it happens, but supplying the proper pet mitt bags is also part of our responsibility to keeping the bay clean, as I understand that, and street sweeping and so on. So I am all for increasing the budget on that item. I do think that we've got to come up with a sticker or something that says, please take only one or two. I mean, I should have jumped out of my car and arrested him, but.
You might have wanted to ask him why he was doing it.
Yes.
That would be the
Are
question.
you
Maybe you
using
have
it
valid
to
purpose.
pack your lunch? I don't know, but it was actually shocking, and I'm sure it is not that unusual.
Are there any other questions or comments? Jeff?
Yes, thank you. One comment. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Shirley, for your comments. And I would certainly be interested in in next year's budget if we could, excuse me, figure out how to make some better efforts to, Ms. Moon talked about keeping the beach clean, and I think that's pretty high on I would say that should be pretty high on our list of priorities. So I would certainly be interested in that, and whether it's hiring people to simply scour the beach mornings to look at the tide tables and figure out when we can do that without all that crap running out into the water. I think that would be a good, a good small program for the city to embark upon. My only other real comment is, when I look at these budget adjustments, what I see are pieces of, Chip, you and I talked about this morning, pieces, I see dollar amounts from the capital improvement project budget being shifted to the operating budget. And, we went through a couple of years, 1 year where we had no capital improvement budget at all, and another year where we had a reduced capital improvement project budget, CIP budget, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And now, this past year we had a healthy CIP budget to try and make up some of the hurt from the previous years, including, as Dave and I know, the police station budget. And we talked this morning, and a lot of this money, $900,000 is coming out of the capital improvement project budget, and that's just money we're going to have to reallocate again next year. And it feels like, with this budget, it feels like with these improvements, which I will support, it feels like we're doing short shrift to the CIP budget. We're not, we're able to do this because we're not getting these projects done quickly enough, and so you're able to take money out of the budget. And obviously the police station is a big, obviously the council threw a big wrench into the works of the police station budget. But I'm a little bit disheartened that the police station CIP budget is going to go from $3.5 million in the bank to $3 million in the bank, or whatever that number is. And that's just more money that we're going to have to make up in next year's budget to fund the police station or figure out what to do. So to some extent, this feels like we're borrowing from the CIP budget, and we're just going to have to pay this off again. Have the same discussion we had have the same discussion next year that we had last year about adequately funding projects around town that I think are important for the residents, important for the bay, and the preserve and everything else. And I find that to be disheartening. The other thing, which I realized when Maxine was talking about the fire engine, was I noticed that there's a decrease to the vehicle fund, which I assume is to partly pay for the fire engine, and I'm okay with that. But part of having this vehicle fund every year, part of having this vehicle fund that we can use to pay for the fire engine and the police station and all the cars we have and all that, is that, you know, there's two sides to this deal, and the other side is that we put money into this vehicle fund every year. You know, so that we fund the vehicle fund with, you know, a couple $100,000 a year, and then we take money away, you know, when we have these big expenditures like for the fire engine, or for, you know, there are a couple electric cars or whatever it is that we're doing. You know, the street sweeper, you know, I think that maybe that money came out of the vehicle fund, but I would be interested, you know, in next year's budget, seeing that we get into the habit, just like we fund this 115 trust, that we get into the habit of, you know, being more precise about the money that we spend on vehicles. And even if we don't, even if we're not buying a street sweeper or a fire engine next year, or a police car, that we put, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 into the, whatever that right magic number is, so that that vehicle fund can fund, so that we can more closely track the expenditures that we have with vehicles, since that's what it's there for. And if we're not going to do that, we should get rid of it. But I think that it's a good idea, and I would like us to be a little bit more prudent about putting that money into that fund, and pay attention to it, just like we do the 115 trust. Thank you.
And I think, you know, I think we can do that. I mean, the way we should be doing it for the vehicle replacement fund is we should be depreciating a vehicle over its service life. For example, if a fire engine costs $1 million and it's going to last for 10 years, we should be putting $100,000 per year into the vehicle replacement fund. The challenge is that when we need money in the operating fund, that's where we've gone, not in our tenure, but in years past, we've rated that fund, and cities do that on a very typical basis. So I will do that for you, because we have to again exert that discipline that we've talked about, that fiscal discipline, and keep the money in there, knowing that those vehicles, whether it's a police cruiser or a fire engine or a sweeper or a chipper truck or what have you, they don't last forever, and then we have to come out of pocket out of the capital fund on 5 years or 8 years or whatever years from now, and fund it at a whole cloth rather than having some money put away. So I hear you, sir. We'll bring that math to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alessandra?
Thank you. I just wanted to make some comments about public safety. We just heard earlier in the meeting that the acting chief met with 14 jewelers, and that I'm sure is very connected to the increase in break-ins, which is a concern. And cameras don't take the place of boots on the ground. I wanted to read from the report. It says, to offset the 32% to 47% base salary increases, the city defunded 3 police officer positions. So my question is this reduced policing model working for our town? I was not part of the negotiations that took place last year, but are we as safe as we were prior to this new contract? And I am hearing from the community that they want to see more police officers out in the field and not at the desk.
Yes, ma'am, and for everyone's benefit, Councilmember Dramoff and I discussed that this morning as well, and what I agreed to do with Chief Watkins is to get a plot synopsis about how much the officers are in the station versus on the street, and then also to look at our crime statistics and see if we can, if there's a trend, because if there is a trend, then we probably need to address that. With more than just cameras. The POA contract is a 3-year contract, and then after year 2, we had agreed to come back to the bargaining table to talk about whether the model, this reduced policing model, is working. And Councilmember Dramoff is correct that she did, I'm sorry, Mrs. Moon, she did inherit the contract because she was elected several months after we agreed to the contract with the Police Officers Association. But I think it's a good analysis, it's a good study, and we'll come back with that data, and we can talk about it.
All right, well, I want to thank the public for their participation. I think it's interesting. We might be the only community that, I'm sorry, did you want to say? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah,
a little out of order, but go ahead.
I'm out of order?
Well, we public comment, but no,
I'm one of the jewelers who was there this morning.
exactly.
And my store is one of the 4 stores that have been burglarized or robbed within the last 45 days, one of 6 within the last year. I'm just sharing my information with you. In January, I had someone here from the Bay Area that said, it's coming. Get out of the way. It said when they realize how easy Carmel is, you'll never be able to get rid of the bad guys. The president of Jewelers Mutual, the largest jewelry insurance company in the United States of America, recently published a video. He said to all jewelers in the United States, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And in my 41 years of experience, it's a lot easier to in stopping the crime, to deter it. And deterrence is done by making it uncomfortable for the bad guys. It's more cameras, better cameras. I understand that the current ones don't have the proper license plate recognition capabilities, and putting more boots on the ground. And I come from a town where we did all those things, and it will deter it. But it's going to come here. I'm afraid it's going to come here, and none of us are going to recognize this town. I think in a very short time, you'll lose a third to half the jewelers here. And when the word gets out to all the people that we want to come here, that Carmel's not safe, they're not coming. And so and I'm thrilled to see the money for the cameras, and I'm only up here in response to your comment. And I think we need more police presence, even if it means leaving police cars out on the street at night with cameras in them, better cameras, and more boots on the ground.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
What was his name? His name?
Sorry, could I get your name for the record? Can we get your name for the record?
Pardon me?
Can we get your name for the record?
Could we get your name for the records, please, sir?
Phil Finnerman. I own Wilkie's Jewelry Store on San Carlos.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that you had their break-in. I'm sorry, unfortunately.
You know, it's the police did their job. Everybody did their job. It's just kind of the set of circumstances we're in. And I just want to see it get taken care of before it's too late. I don't want to say, gee, I wish we would have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well, that pretty much concludes our discussion around the budget. I would say that we probably are one of the few cities where one of the biggest topics for discussion was mutton mitts. I think that says a lot about the security of this county, the city, that we've actually gone ahead and had a big discussion about what is basically a speculative process. There's really no ability to accurately forecast what our costs are going to be and what our revenues are going to be. We've done a good job of that. I think, Chip, you get a lot of credit, Maxime, the entire team, for being conservative in our expenditures and make sure we have enough money salted away so that when we need it, we have it. I think that says a lot about this county, the city's stewardship of the public funds. I also know that that's one of the reasons why we get an annual award.
Yes, sir.
For a good stewardship of the public dollars. So I'm proud of that. I think we've done a good job. I hope we keep it up. So thank you all for your testimony today. We need a motion to approve the budget amendments.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-25 approving amendments to the fiscal year 2022-2023 adopted budget.
I'll second that. I would like to definitely have the discussion come back during budget time.
Of course. We have a motion, we have a second. Nova, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Drammel?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0-1.
Thank you very much. The work for the day is concluded. I want to thank you guys for your participation. This is a challenge, but it's one we've risen to very well, and I appreciate that. Thank you all. We stand adjourned. Well done.
Well done there.
Amazing. Amazing. I like the amendments too.
Did you find out if they're biodegradable? Are they